Jaslynn. I am excited to be here with you guys today and to share my story. It's been a long time where I have been telling Amaryllis I would like to share my story with other women, but really haven't had the guts to actually do it. I'm 29 years old. I'm a mother of two. I have a daughter, Eleni, she's 5, and a son, his name's Ezra, and he is 7 months. I guess my story goes all the way back to when I was a child. I was born and raised in church, a Pentecostal church. My father's sister was the pastor of the church. I then lost my father when I was 4, which was kind of a tough time for me growing up without a father. I really didn't know what it was to have a father figure in my life. I grew up very independent. My mother kind of did everything on her own. She raised me and my brother on her own, and I don't want to say I had it hard because I had a pretty good life. When growing up in church, I got married, did everything the right way. I left the house married. I remember telling God that I didn't have a testimony, and I always used to say, like, God, how can I preach your word, and how can I tell people about you if I have nothing to say? Like, I don't have anything that I've been going through. And I told God, I need a testimony. I don't have anything. Like, I grew up in church. I was born and raised in church. What can I speak about? And I think that was probably the worst thing that I could have asked for, because my marriage kind of took a toll, and it kind of went downhill where I didn't know who I was anymore. I started to do things that I never thought I would be doing. I kind of fell out of love in my marriage, and I called it quits. I told my husband that I didn't want to be married anymore, and I wanted a divorce. So I remember there was just a ton of things that were going on, and I was really weak at the time, where I didn't know, not that I didn't know where God was in my life, but I kind of strayed away from him and strayed away from any advice anybody was giving me. I was really hard-headed and really stubborn. So I remember the day that I called it quits, and I told my husband he needed to move out, and we were gonna give up the house, and I was gonna go my separate way. I spent about a year away from each other, no contact at all. The only contact we had was when I was gonna drop off my daughter or when he was gonna pick her up. And when I do like a cutoff, it's like cold turkey, no contact at all. And my husband would always say, I want to sit down and talk. I want to sit down and see where this went wrong. And I said, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to do anything at all. Like, I want to call it quits, and that's just it. So you need to get over it and move on. I was really cold-hearted and really stubborn. I remember I went to a family member's house, and she sat down and spoke to me. And this is somebody that I would have never thought God would use to speak to me. And she told me, how can you imagine your daughter's life or your husband's life with a whole nother family, and where you're excluded from it? And I said, I don't think it would bother me at all, because, you know, I'm over it. I don't want to be with him. And she literally sat there and painted the picture for me, where I was finally able to see where I was in the wrong. And at that moment, that night, we just cried. I cried, and God really used her to speak to me, not only through how she painted the picture, but other things that she just said, and kind of took me out of the darkness, and I began to be able to see what I was doing wrong, and how I was not only ruining my life, I was ruining my daughter's life. I was breaking a marriage. Everything was kind of going wrong for me. And I remember a year later, I messaged my husband, and I said, I would like to sit down and talk. And he was blown away because he was waiting 11 months for that conversation or for that text message, because in 11 months I had told him there was absolutely no hope. There's no way I will fix this marriage. So then I remember I told him I would like for you to come over and so we could sit down and talk. While at my cousin's house, she made me write out a list of things that I hated in my marriage, things that I now wanted, how I wanted it to be the next time around, and then all the good qualifications or qualities that my husband had in our marriage, and the good outweighed the bad. And that kind of made me also realize what I was missing out on. I remember folding up that paper and putting it in my pocket. That week, I think like a week later, my husband came over, and this is where my heart just tore to pieces, because usually when my husband would come to pick up my daughter, he would stay at the door. Now and it's still sentimental because it's where I realize it is affecting her. I told her that her dad was coming over to bring her some ice cream, and I didn't tell her that he was coming over to work things out, because I didn't want to get her hopes up. I didn't want to get anybody's hopes up. So what was crazy was that when he knocked on the door, Eleni, my daughter, ran downstairs and she's like, Daddy's here, Daddy's here. And she opens the door and she grabs the ice cream and she goes to close the door. And I told her, no, Eleni, don't close the door. He's coming in. And her face lit up because for a year he was left at the door. And for her to see like my dad's coming upstairs, her whole face lit up. As he's coming upstairs, she's like, this is my room, this is the kitchen, this is the living room, these are my toys. And she pointed out just the simplest thing. This is his bathroom, this is my play closet. Everything that she pointed out, and the way her face lit up made me realize, like, I thought for a minute that she was being raised in a love-broken home. But this whole time, the love-broken home was not affecting her as much as it was affecting her for us not to be together. And just the way she lit up when he came inside, I knew for a fact, I'm like, this is affecting her, this is affecting us as a family. What are you doing? And I kind of just smacked me in the face, where now the person that was left at the door is now coming up inside. And we sat down and we spoke that day, and that was the first conversation we had in 11 months, and it was a conversation of hope, and it was a conversation that kind of took a shift. And before he accepted my apology, he made me tell him what was it that went wrong. And that conversation was a deep conversation that shouldn't really be shared with anybody, but we decided to take things slow and work things out. And I showed him my list, and I showed him the things that I wanted to work on, the things where I feel it went wrong, the areas where the areas I'd like to improve in, and the areas that I would like him to improve in. And we told each other we don't want to know anything of what happened in other areas in that year that we spent apart. And we made a few promises, and from there on, God kind of just took total control of our lives. We went to a marriage counseling session. We went to a marriage retreat, and God just really turned everything around, where there's still things that we both obviously need to work on. It's not going to be perfect, and I'm sure that no marriage is perfect. And anybody who is married and whoever got married young, I got married at 23, 24 years old. I'm now 29, and I can tell you that it's not easy. It's not a walk in the park. And when you're born and raised Christian, you think that that's the right way or the easy way out, but it's not. Like, you should really take your time and know that marriage isn't the only option to get you out of the house, like, at a young age. I think that you should really pray about it and kind of let God guide you into marriage, because you don't want to rush into something just because you want to leave your house married, because that was the right thing to do. And that's kind of why I got married. It was just the right thing to do. And it was for all the wrong reasons, and my husband could say the same thing. But now I look at marriage as something that you have to try to make it work. This is what it is. This is what you chose. And now the hard thing is, how is it going to work? Quitting is not an option. How are we going to make this work? Because this is what we chose to do. This is what we chose to do unto God, in front of God. And from that day on, I can say it was not a walk in the park. Every struggle, every tear has been tough, but we brought in a baby boy into this life. Something that 2 years ago I would have never thought was going to happen. 2 years ago, where I said, I am not going to make this work. God had other plans. I have a boy now. We're in the process of buying a house. My husband got a promotion. I got a work-at-home job. The smallest things have been happening to us, all because I chose to make it work. Now, some people think that blessings always come in money or in financial ways, but God blesses us in our health, in our children, in our finances, in our home, in our kids, in their school, in their grades. Like, blessings don't only come in money. And I always tell myself I need to be thankful, because God had mercy on me, and he continues to have mercy on me, all because I chose to believe in my marriage and I chose to keep going. So that's everything, kind of shortened in one story, or 10 minutes, whatever. But I encourage you guys to don't give up. And even if you need to take some time away, I know that everybody and their mother probably criticized me for taking a year away, but that year kind of made me realize what was important, and made me realize it's not over until God says. It really isn't. So for all those almost failed marriages out there, or the ones close to failing, continue to push on. And that's it. Thank you, guys. This is my Be Real, Be You, and I will see you soon.
Yay.
Girl.
I know. I'm like, why am I
Always sniffling. Like,
yeah. Ooh, you did perfect.